Welcome back to Nature Labs and our coverage of the Ontario provincial election. Before we sign off for the night, a couple of issues we'd like to tie a bow on that carry on from interactions we've had earlier today. One, of course, is looking at who will form the official opposition in Ontario. Of course, you want to win government, but if you don't, official opposition, it's the next best thing. It's the next most prestigious position in order to wield power, influence the policy agenda, have time to debate the issues that you want to debate. And it certainly looks like the NDP will be once again forming the official opposition at Queen's Park in the Ontario legislature. Now, both Doug Ford's Progressive Conservatives and Styles' NDP both look to have lost a couple of seats from where they were going into the legislature. We'll see how it all shakes out at the end of the night. But even if they lost a couple of seats, maybe not that super majority for Doug Ford that he was hoping for, certainly a strong mandate for him, certainly a solidified official opposition for the NDP. They're both probably pretty happy. The Greens, of course, get to keep their beachhead. That's a big deal for any party, certainly one that's just beginning to make a breakthrough like the Greens are in Ontario. Now, of course, the real question is the Ontario Liberals. They governed Ontario for years before they collapsed 3 elections ago. In fact, they lost their official party status. Now, if you've been with us for other elections that we've covered here on Nature Labs, you'll know we bring up this term a lot, official party status. It's fancy talk basically for having power, having influence, being the real deal. And the cutoff in Ontario is 12 seats. When you're below that threshold, you're not an official party. Now, of course, you are in real terms, but not in the context of politics. And having official party status means you get more staff, you get more money, you get more power, you get more time to debate issues in the legislature. You generally get more influence. It's a better stepping stone to grow as a party. It's a better place to be in terms of influencing the policy agenda. It makes a big deal. If we've learned anything in this class, hopefully, it's that money still matters in politics, and being official party status gets you the money, it gets you the juice, it gets you the power. They're right on that threshold. 14 seats would do it. That's a big step up for the Ontario Liberals back to sort of the position, the power of that they used to hold in the province. But that number is definitely not solidified. And if it goes below 12 and they lose that status again, this would be a really rough night for the Ontario Liberals. And certainly Bonnie Crombie, their leader, is in touch and go in terms of being able to hold on to her riding as well. So in that scenario, if the Ontario Liberals don't form opposition, they don't get official party status, and the leader doesn't win her riding, there probably will be some serious recriminations in terms of what this means for the future of the Ontario Liberal Party in that province. That being said, right now, all systems go for the Liberals, so they're right on that, on the good side of that line. And if they stay on that side, probably this night may not be as perfect as they wanted it to be, but they are a step closer to relevance once again in Ontario. So that's one story we're watching and is worth watching tonight and tomorrow as the polls solidify and we know the final results in Ontario. The other is that little gray 1 box. Now, you'll remember in our last interaction I talked about how exceedingly rare it is for an independent candidate to actually win in an election. But lo and behold, they've done it in Ontario. Bobby Ann Brady has been elected as an independent candidate in her riding. In fact, she's been re-elected as an independent candidate in her riding, which is a phenomenal series of events. This number fluctuates throughout the night, and last time we checked in, it was a riding in Northern Ontario, and that candidate definitely did not win. But when the poll started to close in Southwestern Ontario and the results started to come in, it was clear that Bobby Ann Brady was going to be able to pull it out as an independent candidate, and boy did she ever. She won in a landslide. So many different levels of amazingness here because, again, in our system of governance, whether we're talking provincially or federally, it's just so hard for an independent to cut through the noise. They don't have that big branding that a party has. People don't get that name recognition. People don't have a sense of sort of the ideas that they stand behind that you usually get when you associate yourself with a political party. For an independent candidate to stand out against the parties, they have to really build up a personal brand. They have to build a community. They have to have name recognition. They have to be able to get the word out and get their voters to the polls. It really is a community building initiative for an independent to win in our system of governance. And Bobby Ann Brady has been able to do that in Ontario. A phenomenal task. Made even more phenomenal by being re-elected as an independent, because again, even though the power of the incumbent is very powerful in our system, again, the parties almost always win out, but the independent came first here yet again, astounding. And then you look at the vote totals. She got a massive landslide victory, as we just talked about, and that is even rarer in these cases. Independents usually squeak in when a couple of parties split the vote and an independent's able to sneak up the middle. That wasn't the case here, a landslide victory. So Bobby Ann Brady, I doubted you. I didn't think you'd be able to hold on to it and be reelected, but I stand corrected. A hearty congratulations on an impressive victory. And no matter where you are in the country, it's reason to believe that miracles do happen. And if you are that person who's considering, you just don't like the party process and you want to be an independent, well, hope springs eternal. Maybe you too can be the next Bobby Ann Brady, wherever you might want to stand for election. But tonight, tying a bow on the Ontario election, a big majority for Doug Ford. Maybe not that super majority, but certainly a very strong mandate to go forward with. The Ontario NDP forming the official opposition. That is an interesting dynamic because, of course, the PCs, the Progressive Conservatives, and the NDP, in some ways are increasingly pulling from the same pool of voters. They both are embracing sort of populist policies, even one if the Conservatives are, of course, materializing more on the right of the political spectrum and the NDP more on the left. But as you saw in the video we shared earlier today, the increasing role of populism will be front and center in Ontario's legislature in Queen's Park, where two parties that embrace populism in different ways will be governing and leading the opposition. The more globalist, if you will, Ontario Liberals, they'll be having a stronger say in the next session of government in Ontario, but it still remains to be seen if they'll get official party status. So that's how the election has shaken out in Ontario, and as we've discussed, it has big ramifications for our country in terms of how we approach the tariffs being threatened by Trump, what it means for national unity, what issues get advanced, and of course, how it might all influence the federal election, which is probably only mere weeks away from being called. So until that night, stay tuned for all the drama and stories that unfold between now and then. We hope we helped you contextualize and understand how this election in Ontario relates to what you're learning in class, how it impacts the communities where you live, how it impacts our country and our world. And hopefully you just have a little bit better context of why an Ontario election matters, no matter where you find yourself in this country. And if you find yourself in Thunder Bay, I hope you've got a snow shovel, because I hear you had a lot of snow tonight. And if you went out to the polls, good for you.